I was thinking about how we're all continuing to cope as this pandemic year rolls on, and specifically about how musicians are doing so. That's one thing if it's one musician in the household and they have their thing, they play out, they record, they write, whatever they do. But when it's two, when it's a couple in a household, that seems to me it might be a little bit different. So I wanted to approach a couple who are doing that thing they do, to coin a phrase. Brian Bringelson and Katy Pearson, who are married and both musicians and heavily into music. Music is their passion. You can see behind them on the wall the Beach Boys Smile poster, which used to be a Beatles poster, I found out. Right, but Katy, you said let's move it, right?
Both her idea, by the way.
I know. See, that's good. That's what we get here too. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. My wife is just like that. They're very passionate about music. Brian has a YouTube channel that is stocked to overflowing with videos where he talks about famous records or records that he just loves. Your passion, Brian, is overflowing. And I tell you, if I'm down in the dumps, I know to watch one of your videos, I'll feel better,
Awesome.
after it. As musicians, you guys played out, you played shows, and you record, you do all these things, but these are not normal circumstances still anymore. Seems like a bad show on Broadway that's continuing to run, even though nobody goes to see it. So I wanted to talk to you guys about things like that. But first, for people who don't know you guys, Katy records under the name Bearkat. Brian used to record under the name Paul Starling, of which we will discuss a little bit later on. Brian has a new album out with Gabe Dulek. Did I pronounce his name correctly?
Yeah, that's it.
Good guess. Okay. Gabe Dulek. It's called Desperate Days. Look at that. See, there it is. It's on the great label Futureman Records. Shout out to Keith Klingensmith there. So it's a fantastic record. Get it if you don't already have it. Get the CD. So you can hold it in your hand. You see, open it up. You get the CD. You get some credits. You get all sorts of stuff. So it's good. So I wanted to start off to talk about how you guys met. Was it music that drew you together, that kind of circumstance, or what happened?
Yeah, it was felt a bit fated, as it were. I was at college, went to music school, and I was planning to move to California, and I was kind of reaching out because I am an East Coaster originally. I'm from Maryland, and I was going to school in Boston, and I didn't know anyone. And I was like, well, I'm starting to play shows. I'm starting to play my own live music here. I want to keep that going when I go out west. And so just through a random string of friends, if you guys are old enough to remember MySpace, when that was active and people had their top 10s and all of that, we connected via MySpace. I had reached out to his project, the Paul Starling, and said, hey, I'm going to be coming out to California. My friend gave me your information, and then that was just sort of it. We connected, we chatted on AOL Instant Messenger. How much are we dating?
You're really dating everybody now. Now you're really dating everybody.
I know.
But actually, we booked a show. I mean, the first conversation we had, we booked a show together up in Santa Barbara out here in California. And yeah, just from there, we were chatting really just about music and just connecting on all the music that we loved. And we were both in relationships at that time with other people. So it was just strictly talking about music and how we love music. And then we played the show together. Her band played with my band. And we just stayed in contact.
I asked you to come on tour with me.
Yeah, and then eventually she, a couple years later, she was going on a tour with her Bearkat project and needed a guitar player, and asked if I'd be interested in doing it, and I totally was. And went on tour, had an awesome time, did 2 more tours after that. And that's just kind of how we connected, and then obviously fell in love and got married, and here we are now. So that's how it all happened.
What did you find that the types of music that you liked met, head on? Did you meet in the middle? Were there things, Katy, that you liked, and Brian, you said, boy, I don't really know those guys, or how did that fit?
I think that was one of the most telling parts, or one of the foundations for the structure of our relationship.
Actually,
oh, go ahead.
I've got to say this. So the first time I ever called her, this is back when, like, on your cell phone, you could have like when you called someone, you could have like a song playing while you're waiting for the call to happen. And her song was a Pet Sounds outtake. It was "Hang On to Your Ego."
Really?
And I was like calling, going like, what is happening? She's got "Hang On to Your Ego," and then she answered, and I was like, I said hello or whatever, and I immediately was like, was that "Hang On to Your Ego"? And she's like, yeah.
I think I was excited because you knew what it was. I was like, yeah, that's what it is.
Our musical tastes, but to emphasize on that part, they were exactly the same. It was pretty trippy. Like, we pretty much had the exact same love for the same albums, and just, it was just spot on. Everything was spot on. There was nothing that she liked that I didn't like, or vice versa, really. So it all just clicked.
Yeah.
Anybody who has as a ringtone, "Hang On to Your Ego," but would have been even more weird if you would have had like George Fell Into His Piano, or whatever the name of that other Smile thing is.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, that would have freaked me out. But in any case, still good. So I talked before briefly about how you guys play shows. You have the band Anchor and Bear that you're both in. You sing back up on his stuff. He sings back up on your stuff. You play guitar. I mean, it's a lot of coalescing there. But now, since we've been in the pandemic, you've had to do other things to keep active. And one of those things is playing some holiday online shows that you did, which were a lot of fun. So thinking behind how you ply your trade during a pandemic has to, I would think, maybe it doesn't, but I would think it has to enter into the way you approach things. And now that it seems to be getting better out there, it's not gone yet. We all still have to be careful, but how has the restrictions, the feeling of the pandemic, entered into your thinking about how you continue on being musicians in a world that really is very different?
Mm-hmm. It's truthfully, it's been really difficult, I think, and it's been emotionally, I can speak for myself, like, it's really just been a spectrum. Like, it's just been a fluctuation of finding like doing the holiday live streams, or kind of navigating into the live stream world, which we got so used to playing live shows in front of people, and we were kind of new, and still kind of are new to this idea and concept of doing live streams. And it's such a different experience and a connection to the audience. It's a very different way. So we had to kind of, I think for myself, like, sometimes soldier on through, maybe when I wasn't feeling motivated, or I was feeling discouraged and couldn't really see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, is this ever going to change? Are we ever going to be able to get back out there? So it has been a lot of, ups and but then also a lot of kind of lower points where it felt a little still, and you didn't quite know what your next step should be, or could be even.
Yeah. A lot of making it up as we went along, and trying to creating projects just out of thin air, and just like hoping, just clinging on to what we knew how to do, which is just to play music and write music.
Yeah.
And doing whatever we could in that way. And honestly, living together and having a fellow musician in the house made that easier, because when I ran out of ideas, which was a lot, she would come up and, let's do the holiday shows, or let's work on this. And then when she got a little dry, I'd come up with like, well, let's do a cover of this song or whatever. It's really nice to have that. And actually, I feel we have a lot of friends who are musicians, and you maybe live alone or the only musician in the house. And I think for them, it was like really, really difficult because it's like, well, what do you do? But you can only do so much as a solo person, you know, with a Zoom or whatever. But we were very fortunate in that way to have each other.
Yeah.
Well, you act as each other's lifelines,
Yeah.
and you complement each other. You know, it's you know the old line about you know, he completes my sentences, or you know, I have half the thought, she has the other half. There's a lot to be said for that, because being by yourself is hard. You know,
Totally.
I mean, under any circumstance. But if you're a
Yeah.
creative person, the other thing that I've noticed with these home shows that people, I mean, I know one couple, they do one every Sunday, I think it is, afternoon, and they're keeping an Excel spreadsheet, I think it is, of all of the tracks that they're playing, and they've played something like 300 different songs.
Wow. Yeah.
And they tell you what show it was, so you can look it up. You know, I mean, it's and the other thing is, you know, in the olden days of a year and a half ago or whatever it is now, if somebody did a stream that people could watch, it was a whole different bag of beans. You know, it was very professional.
Yeah.
Suits, wearing suits, you know, really nice clothes, the hair perfectly, you know. And now it's like, you know, I hope there isn't a hair, the hair sticks out up here all the time. You know, it's become pretty calm and easy to accept. You know, so I think it's a good thing. So I'm going to jump back and forth here.
Okay.
You've got this new album here, Desperate Days. So you made me go look up Gabe, because I hadn't heard. I knew he was your friend, but I didn't know who he was. So I saw he's an engineer. He had a band now, which I forgot to write the name down, so I can't remember it. But in any case, you guys basically split the duties and made this really knockout record, Desperate Days, which is just awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. So anybody doesn't have it, get it now. What else are you doing? Well, after this, if wait, don't turn this off. But before that, you know, Brian did not just drop from the sky. He comes from other things, and the way that I knew you existed in the world was under the name Paul Starling. I had no idea. I mean, I thought Paul Starling was a real guy. I didn't know, you know, and then I found that indeed it was you. And in fact, you announced on your Facebook page, Paul Starling is gone. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, because I think there are musicians who have certain projects that maybe people don't associate them with because they were under another name or whatever. What made you use this name, Paul Starling, for 9 albums? I mean, it was a long time.
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, the quick story of this is that when I was in high school and I started to, I've been writing songs for a long, long time, but then I wanted to start playing out. And I've always been kind of the reluctant musician, performer. I don't really enjoy playing live. I like it a lot more now, but back then I was really kind of didn't like it too much. So I didn't want to use my real name. So I just came up with Paul Starling based on Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr, like a weird mixing of those two things. And so for a long time, I was just Paul Starling, and I released a lot of albums as Paul Starling, and the power pop community really embraced me and made me feel really welcome, and that was really cool. But then I kind of started to feel like, for some reason, the Paul Starling thing, it just started feeling really inauthentic. And having to explain that I'm not Paul Starling, and you know, my name's Brian, and it just started feeling kind of weird. And so I kept using the name because that's how people knew me. And I remember thinking, like, you know, if Badfinger all of a sudden put out an album as Joey and Tom and blah blah blah, I would be like, well, what are they doing? They're Badfinger, you know, that's weird. So that's kind of why I stuck with Paul Starling. But then I just got tired of it. So I said, I'm going to put that to rest. And then we were working on our band, Anchor and Bear. That became like the main focus for me. So I just thought, well, I'm not going to say anything about Paul Starling being over. I'm just going to keep working on other projects. Kind of like when the Beatles stopped touring. They didn't say they were going to stop touring. They just stopped touring. So then,
Right.
Then flash forward to, I was going to put out this album with Gabe, and I just thought, I'm just going to use my real name because that's who I am. And Paul Starling was fun, and I'm really proud of all that work I did as under that name. And that's the story of Paul Starling.
It's interesting because I remember when I found out it was you, because everybody, people say, well, I'll never tell anybody, but of course they do. And then, it gets around, and I found out that it was that wasn't really your name. I thought, well, I'll just keep the secret. But I'm glad that the chains are off now. I can tell everybody the truth. It's like Stephen King, Richard Bachman. His pseudonym, Richard Bachman, was his real estate agent. I think was the guy who was on the picture on the books. So here, I wanted to ask you. Well, no, I'll wait on that. All right, Katy, over to you. You basically have done the same thing, although it's not like Bearkat Stevens or whatever, but as Bearkat. How did you start working under a pseudonym like that?
That was actually something similar. So when I first started playing music out with my own original songs, I was having a really hard time finding a name, and I don't know, I was just same kind of thing, like kind of shy and didn't really feel hadn't really found kind of a comfortable groove with playing live, because I started playing live music as a bass player. Like I wasn't in the front. I was like in the back and happy and chilling back there. And then when I started performing, I don't even know how Bearkat came about. I think someone had suggested it, or like we named something, and who I was living with at the time. And I was like, oh, I really like that. And I think that there was sort of this surge of artists, especially female artists, that I was looking up to, like Annie Clark, St. Vincent, and seeing these sort of these names that it felt kind of empowering. So I just decided, I also like to, I think, have a mixture of both like feminine and masculine sort of ideas in my music. It just feels natural to me. So I think Bearkat made me feel a bit empowered for some reason. I couldn't tell you why, but it gave me the kind of boost and the courage, I think, to really put myself out there and try to promote myself, which isn't something that comes naturally. Some people are so great at that. I am not one of those people. So yeah, I think that just kind of gave me it. And to be totally honest, I have echoed some of the similar sentiments that Brian has felt throughout the years of, I do still feel connected to Bearkat, and it still does feel appropriate to use it, but there have been times where I felt like I was a completely different person from, that 20-year-old me that started the project, and wondering and questioning, did it feel authentic? Did it feel appropriate to keep using it? So he's heard me countless times over the years, like, should I change it? What about this? What do you think of this? So that might happen down the line for me as well.
I suggested Paul Starling.
Yeah, I might take that. I might use
it's all in the family. Just use the name. It's perfect.
Wow, I mean, she sounds just the same.
She sounds way better than before.
Yeah, she underwent some kind of a transformation or something.
Yeah.
What happened over there?
Yeah.
Well, so it's interesting. So Brian, you shed the Paul Starling name to be yourself, and it works, Katy, for you to be Bearkat.
Yeah.
And it's more freeing for you. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Well, so then together, and I haven't even scratched the surface yet, but together you have a band called Anchor and Bear, and it's a band. I mean, it's not just you two; it's a band.
Yeah.
But how does it work in a band setting, merging your likes and dislikes of certain types of music, or should this be riff heavy or should this not be riff heavy, or hey, that's a nice melody, or maybe this needs to be undercut a little bit, or whatever. How does it work in a band setting versus when you two are by yourselves?
Well, I think the reason why it works, and you could speak to this too, is there are no rules. It's just whoever has a good idea, that's the idea we use. And with Anchor and Bear, and really, I think both are our side projects too, but with Anchor and Bear especially, it's always just kind of, there's never been a set plan. It's just if she has a song idea, we use it, and I'll come up with something that maybe helps it, or she'll just write it completely on her own, and that's the song we use, or vice versa. Or we'll write, we'll bring like just one lick to the band, like a band practice, and we'll all just write the song around that. So it's all just, there are just no rules. And I think that no rules kind of theory really keeps the band fresh, and it makes it so everyone feels like, or at least the two writers, which are Katy and I, it makes us both feel like we can kind of bring anything we want. That's at least how I look at it. We've actually never really talked about this before, which is actually interesting that you would bring it up of how we approach it. But
yeah, no, I think the thing that we have in our favor, and I think why, because I'm trying to think, I'm like, I don't really think that there's ever really been an issue or anything that like needed to be resolved in terms of songwriting or suggestions. I think we both just grew up surrounded and influenced by so many of the same artists that usually our instincts or our inclinations are gonna be pretty much in line. And I think we also respect each other like completely, to the point of where I know that if I suggest something and I'm adamant about it, we'll at least give it a try and check it out, and then vice versa.
yeah,
I think Anchor and Bear helped me a lot, because with solo stuff, which I've come to find I need both. Like that's when I'm my happiest, when I'm functioning in both. I have something that I can kind of keep in a Lord of the Rings style way and just keep very precious, but that can slow me down. And sometimes I get in my own head. And with Anchor and Bear, it's the band aspect of it is so fun. And I get to kind of borrow a little bit, which I think is a really good quality of Brian's, just like, just try it. Let's just try it and see what happens, or let's just go with it and see what happens. Can really lead to some really great moments and some really great parts that you didn't even realize that maybe you'd stopped yourself short of reaching, to that next phrase or that next melody line or something like that. So yeah, I feel really lucky. It really works. We haven't ever had like a big,
it's true.
The biggest difference we have, I think, is the way that we work. I think that's our biggest difference, but it complements. Definitely.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Is it ever jarring to go back and forth? I mean, I know you're saying really one feeds off the other in this respect, but is it ever like, if you're doing Anchor and Bear for a longer period of time, and then all of a sudden you go into solo mode, do you have to change your approach at all, or is it just just snapping and there you are?
Yeah, I don't feel like I have to change my approach really. I just kind of, fingers crossed, it's always been so organic. Everything just, by the way, I don't like when people say organic, but I just said it. Anyway, it all comes so naturally, where it seems like, we have an Anchor and Bear period, and then it just transitions into, let's do, all of a sudden we're just doing a Bearkat EP. We're recording Bearkat, and then it's like, maybe she'll suggest like, let's book some Bearkat shows and get a trio together, which we did right before the pandemic. And that was brewing, and it just happened so naturally. And then just actually, like, right now we're working on an Anchor and Bear album number 3, just from home. We're doing the recording all here, and then our drummer's recording it at his place, bass player's in his place. But it all just kind of happened. There was no grand announcement of like, Bearkat is now done. Here comes Anchor and Bear. It all just kind of flows together. And I really feel lucky that we have that working in our favor. Because I think it would be a bit difficult if it was like, well, I want to do this right now, and she's still in Bearkat mode. And it'd be weird if I had to like butt heads and be like, well, no, we're going to do this. It never happens that way. And like I said, I feel very, very lucky that we have that.
Well, it's interesting from the fan or the listener perspective. You know, it used to be where people would be on the East Coast saying, boy, I keep reading they have some pop community out there in LA. I wish I could be there and see how it happens. And now the whole world's been opened up. Obviously, the internet's been part of that. Social media has been part of that. But the pandemic, actually, some good things have come out of it. You got to kind of look at it that way. Otherwise, you'd be crying all day long. You know, because of these shows, these streaming shows that you and everybody, well, so many people are doing, and opening yourselves up, award shows and things like that. I mean, it's really, if you have high-speed internet, you're pretty much anywhere, whenever you want to be there. I wanted to talk, Brian, about this is where I said I barely scratched the surface. He used to do a show called Needle Meets Vinyl, which, when Pure Pop Radio was on the air, I actually broadcast that show. It was a lot of fun. It's an extension of everything he does. You know, Brian's the kind of guy still, I'm guessing, but that you're the kind of guy who still, even if you looked at it 1,000 times, you put on a record, you look at the cover, you read the liner notes, you look at the pictures, you take the poster out. That's nice. Well, I don't want to hang that up though, because it won't be valuable at that point. You know, right? You're still that guy.
Yeah, that's she can attest to that.
Oh yeah, I've never met anyone, and I mean this as a compliment. I've never met anyone that love, like, in terms of his passions, music, obviously, loves to absorb information and knowledge, any fact he can find, and any, you know, new pressing, or listening to a pressing 25, 30 times and just searching for a new thing that he's missed. I've never met anyone like that before, and sometimes I really just do kind of admire it in awe. It's so cool to me, because I don't know, it's just such a, I think, you know, you feel this way, like people with passions like you, it's very inspiring, regardless of what that passion might be. And I find that in you for sure. You hit that nail right on the head. That's exactly him.
Well, that's kind of the way it is here. The words or the sentence, I never heard that before, comes up fairly often with reissues, or if I get a different pressing of something, whatever. But Needle Meets Vinyl does not stop there. And this is something I did not know. See, I did not know this part, that you actually have a business, Needle Meets Vinyl. See, I discovered this on my own, where Brian is the kind of guy who would listen, as Katy just said, listen to all these different pressings and obsess over these things. But it's come to help people who are looking for the best pressing of Pink Floyd's The Wall, or some Allman Brothers record, or, you know, Steely Dan, or whatever it is. And he dutifully sits there and listens to all these things as many times as it takes to discover, and does research to come up with that one pressing from Germany from 1978. It wasn't the one that was released on Tuesday, but it was the one that was released on Wednesday.
Exactly.
And it does. But I'm not making a joke there. It does come down to that.
One with the laminated strip on the cover, but if it doesn't have that, it's terrible. You don't want it.
Right. Yeah. If it's an Obi strip and it's yellow on the bottom where the pressing date is, that's not the one you want. But it really is part of it. I mean, all those little details are right.
Yeah. It's a wild world.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But so he has this business. If you go up to I was going to say anchorandbear.com. Needle Meets, you got like 48 websites. Needlemeetsvinyl.com. And you can see now, I'm guessing the reason why when you go there, you can see the stock that he has. And he talks about this. I watched your video explaining all the process. And you're seeing that, you see an album for $150, $200. There's a reason for it. It's not because, because that seems like a good price. It's not like that. It's what these things really are valued at. So a lot of them are out of stock. And I guess the reason for that is the pandemic. You can't really do a lot of that while you're stuck at home.
Exactly. Yeah. Unfortunately, the pandemic has like really put a big stop to my whole business for now. But I still do it as much as I can. But it's like before the pandemic, I was literally going to record stores. Like she knows, I would go like every day. I'd go to a record store. I'd go to thrift stores, just constantly searching for records and buying as many different pressings of, you know, whatever, Chicago one, and just getting as many as I can, listening to them, selling back the ones I don't want. It was just the whole process that just went on and on. And then when the pandemic happened, it all just came to a screeching halt. And I tried to do the online buying, which I've always done anyway, you know, eBay and all that kind of stuff, but it's just not the same as far as being able to get the records I need to get and that whole situation. But the website is still happening, and there are some records still up there that before the pandemic I was able to get to and all that kind of stuff. But once this is all over, I do plan to get back into that as much as I can and try to keep that going.
See, this is the guy you want for things like this, so you don't have to do that work, because there's a lot of work. I mean, I have to admit, I'm like the last guy who's going to listen to 16 pressings of, you know, Piper, you know, the Pink Floyd album to get the best pressing. I rely on people like you to tell me which is the best pressing, because otherwise, you know, I already have no more room. So, you know, I would rather know the one thing and the thing to avoid, and that's the kind of guy. So and then plus on top of that, on Brian's YouTube channel, he's got tons of videos where he talks about the latest records, or not the latest records, but the latest albums that he's listened to. Buffalo Springfield, he tells you the band members, you know, and it seems to me like somebody who was schooled in this kind of thing, or had spent sort of their lifetime going over all these little details, would know all this stuff yet. But I like that you do that, because believe it or not, there are some people who will say, yeah, I know Steve Stills is in that band, but who else?
Yeah.
Because they really, I mean, not everybody, you know, yeah, I'm sure you run into this, but there are people who are music nuts, but they're on a very low, you know, sort of low level, you know, they're very casual about it. And every time, I think most people, if you go over all those little details, it enhances the value of that music to them. And it's a good thing that you're out there telling people that stuff, because some people really don't know.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for saying that. I mean, I gotta say that the one thing from doing all of the, you know, talking about having a YouTube channel, talking about records and having a website, selling records, the coolest thing that I've found is the really, really young kids. I'm talking like the 13 and 14-year-olds who find my channel. And like you were saying, it's like they've never heard Buffalo Springfield. They have no idea that two of the guys who were in Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young were in Buffalo Springfield. Like they don't know. They don't know that Stephen Stills has solo albums, or they don't know all this stuff. And to them, it's this whole world opening up. And it's so cool when I read them to her all the time. I get these messages from people, you know, on Instagram or whatever social media, and they're like, "Thank you so much. I've never heard Deja Vu before." Yeah, or something like that. And you're like, that's so cool. And I feel like when I make my videos, a lot of times I do kind of feel like, am I just like giving information that everyone knows? And this is like so boring for people. It's like, we know that Jeff Emmerich engineered Sgt. Pepper. We know, you know, but then I get people who are like, I just looked up Jeff Emmerich and he has a book and it's amazing and I love it and blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, so it all comes back as, it really makes sense. It really, I'm glad that people are really picking up on it, especially the younger people. It's so rewarding.
Well, I think it's valuable to give out information like, because not everybody's going to not know about it, and some do, and you know that's the way it goes. But sometimes you'll be reading a story. I read a lot of music bios, and I'm reading one on Richard Perry now, his autobiography. And he tells a lot of long stories, at least towards the beginning of the book anyway. And one of them is that where he grew up, it was in Indiana, I can't remember. No, he went to school. I don't know. But anyway, he was in a group where they decided they needed to expand a little bit. So they went out and got a girl singer. and her name was Goldie. I forget what her last name was. And I'm just reading the story, and it sounded pretty cool. And then he kind of they lost track of each other and everything. And she went on to a career as Genya Ravan, who a lot of people may not know who that is, but she's a singer, very famous singer from the 60s, and is still, I think, working today, I think. So, to me, it's like, geez, I didn't know. That's bizarre. How did that happen? Weird. I mean, you're just, a couple of people, and one of them turns out to be somebody who becomes famous. Not that he didn't, but anyway.
Sure.
I digress. I always digress. That should be my middle name, digressing. So when this is all over or down to like it's the flu at that point, how do you think? I mean, you're not just going to snap your fingers and boom, you go back to playing a full slate of shows and have the band all be in the same room and all this kind of thing. Or will you do that? I mean, I guess it's really hard to tell at this point.
Yeah, through this whole process, we've kind of set, while there are no rules musically, we've kind of set parameters for ourselves. Because even though we miss playing shows, like all the other musicians out there that can't, and all the other artists out there that can't express their art in the way that they were before, ultimately, we really care about people being safe. And so we have, there have been opportunities where, when the numbers were spiking and people were like, oh, this is happening, we had to kind of look at each other and be like, ooh, do we feel comfortable doing that? Just keeping ourselves safe, but also, other people that where our presence there and people gathering might potentially be putting them at risk. So I think we'll probably carry on with that same idea of we'll kind of just judge it in a case-by-case basis and probably feel more comfortable with outside shows for a while. Probably do the duo thing that we've been doing, and then,
I mean, we've been getting we've started getting some booking emails from people, and which is nice. It's nice to start getting stuff like that, and people are looking to the future, and that's really, really great. And we've booked a couple of shows way in the future, but with all the bookings, I've said it and she said it, of like, we'll do it, but it has to be safe and it has to be okay, and we don't know what the future is going to hold. That's the thing I think that we're thinking about. And for me personally, I do have optimism. I think things are gonna, I don't know if they're gonna go back to how they were, but there will be live music again. There will be people getting together and enjoying life and all that kind of stuff. But I'm a little weary of jumping in too soon. I definitely am, of like just getting back in and just playing a show next weekend, and as if everything's okay. Yeah. That first show is going to be weird. It's just going to be weird, and people aren't going to know what to do, and I'm not going to know what to do. She's not going to know what to do, but we're all going to get through it, just like we're getting through this right now. And I am very optimistic for the future. So
yeah.
Well, I think in a lot of respects that this whole pandemic has really brought us closer.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, and in other ways maybe not so much, but it's the people who are following the rules and being safe. I mean, I saw a video this morning or yesterday online of an extended family that got together. This is just now. They got together at some restaurant. There's like 25 people or something sitting in a bunch of long tables put together in a restaurant. No masks, no nothing. They're all on top of each other. They're probably not a good idea, but what do I know? So we do all have to be careful. But on the plus side, on the happy side of things, look at these two. Look at all the stuff that they do. I mean, they're all over the place, and that's good for you, especially if you don't know their music. I assume some of you do. The ones that don't, we've got. I've got paper all over the place here. You can hear an avalanche in a second. There it is, Desperate Days, right here. from Brian and Gabe Dulek. It's got a nice 50s sci-fi type cover on there. And oh, wait a minute, that's my Uncle Joe. I recognized him from the mask, the outfit, the costume. And here's a scientist on the back. You know, he's desperate because I don't know, he just looks like he's desperate. And in case you want to go backwards, and you should find out all about the Paul Starling era. Hey, look at that! You can even go there. So that's good there. And Brian's got his YouTube channel, and Needle Meets Vinyl, and Katy's got Bearkat all over the place, and they're both exceptional performers and writers. Katy, you've got a lovely voice. I love listening to your stuff. It's really great, and Brian too. The two of them are terrific, and yeah. So you know, beneath this interview, listen. There'll be some clips of some not clips, but links to videos or audio from Bandcamp of some choice tracks that both have done, so you can sample them, and then you'll say, where have they been all my life? And because that's kind of where it goes almost every time, right? So I want to thank you very much for being here today. And there you go. I'm glad you could be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I was looking forward to this.
Yeah.
By the way, I gotta just say, Alan is one of the coolest guys around, by the way. So everyone listening or watching this, Alan is a true music fan and a true, he has so much knowledge when it comes to music. So Alan is to be praised and respected. And I just got to say that because you've always been so supportive of me and of Katy's music and of just all kinds of good music. So Alan's fantastic. So just put that on your website. It doesn't cost anything.
Use that soundbite.
Yeah.
I'm going to send that clip around to my relatives now. So.
Yeah. Send it to everybody you know.
The ones who weren't sure about me before, now you'll listen.
Yeah.
Now you'll listen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
you're fantastic.
And we'll be following everything you do in the future. And let's just get out there and entertain everybody. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.